And those sessions will run through problem identification, going on to the business model, and setting up a business. I don't know how to manage the microphones. David, if you're there, can you please mute, help with muting of the microphones that feel...
Yeah,
yes. Okay. Great. So yeah. Can we please keep our microphones muted? Okay, it should work. Yes, so setting the scene as we start, I'd like to first of all, my name is David Gonahasa. I have been an entrepreneur for the last, I think about 15 years or 16 years. I opened my first company at 19. I have failed many, many times. A few things have actually worked out quite well. In 2017, I was named the Innovation Achiever of the Year in Uganda by the MTN Innovation Awards. I have built a company that was named Top 30 Technology Startups in Africa in 2015. And I have done almost everything from an innovation perspective, an entrepreneurship perspective, around building and changing companies and changing direction and building business models. So I have a bit of an idea of what I'll be sharing with you today and over the next 2 days. And what's most important, and I'll start here, is what to expect from this training activity. It's very important to learn about problem solving because many times we build businesses as solutions at the start, but we need to understand why we're building businesses. So one is, we hope that by the time you're done with today's session, you'll have a better understanding of problem solving. Secondly, we want to be able to identify some opportunities created by COVID-19 because, as people were coming up with new ideas, it is very interesting for us to start to consider what opportunities are there now, what can we do, especially as things seem to be changing. There's a lot of conversation around the new normal and what the new normal means. The next thing is, I will give you a framework to help you with turning problems into solutions or trying to build them into products, okay? And also understanding how to build and test your solution such that if you're going to take a business to the market, you should be able to have something that has been tested, something that could work, and all this without having to spend so much, because we realize most times entrepreneurs will say that my problem is it's too expensive or I can't start the process, okay? But before we start, there's a few things I'd like to share with you. The first thing is, who is the new entrepreneur, okay? Because for a long time, there are things we have been told, which are what you call conventional business knowledge, right? And you're seeing companies come out of places like Silicon Valley and some parts of Africa, where they're growing into multiple markets very quickly, being able to raise millions of dollars in investment and grow. I'll give you an example. There's a company out of Nigeria called Flutterwave. And Flutterwave is a business that does payments processing. And this company grew from 2016. And today in 2019, they're valued at over $40 million, right? And this is an African company, so one, it is possible. But even bringing it home, you have smaller companies in agro-processing that have started very small and have been able to grow very quickly. What is it that they're doing unique? What are they doing different that is driving this growth? Please remember, if you have any questions during the session, feel free to ask any of the questions. You can use the chat service within Zoom itself, so you can ask a question. I will try to respond as we go. Let's be as interactive as possible. It's unfortunate that we're not together, but it is possible. So the first thing that you were told as an entrepreneur is follow your passion, okay? So you're told what you like, what you really love, go ahead and do it. Today, the new entrepreneur is different. The new entrepreneur is looking at what is missing in my community, what is missing in my market, and can I build that, right? So as opposed to saying that I love sports, and so I'm going to go and create a football team, maybe what's missing is a good health drink to support sports players, and you're going to use that to be able to build a business. The next thing you're told is start with a business plan. And what business plans do is that you will spend so much time putting down documents, which are very theoretical. And I'll explain that to you in a few minutes. In reality, what you want to do is identify who are the users of your product. How do you connect with them and build something that your users want? So as opposed to spending, a month writing a business plan and building a 5-year business model, which you can't validate and you can't prove, you'd rather find 100 users, speak to them, and work with them. The next thing is sell to as many people as possible. At the start, you've not yet validated your product. At the start, you don't know if your business will work. You don't know if a product will work. So when you go and start producing very much because you assume that you can quickly drive sales, you're losing money and wasting money. I'll use a personal example. We began building a product in 2013 called Roundball. This was a tourism technology business. And we raised about $100,000 and began to build this. And before we spoke to customers, we had a product that we put into the market. And we began to see that at the start, there was a bit of growth driven by public relations and communication. And after a few months, we stopped seeing customers use the product, but we'd spent so much money already. So we had to go back to our investors and tell them it didn't make sense. So before you start spending a lot of money, you're raising a lot of money to build something, test it, validate it, make sure it works. And the last thing they tell you is find advisors if you're a first-time founder, find people to speak to you. Now, this is not wrong knowledge. It is conventional, but it is correct. You need mentors, you need advisors. But there's other ways to actually achieve growth. The truth is that if you're trying to build a business or build an idea, just keep trying to grow every day. Grow 10% per week. If you're producing a fruit juice product, make sure you can show that 10% more are buying my product every week, because that is a feedback loop that you use to be able to grow your business. Now, what is interesting is what kind of entrepreneurs are there? What kind of entrepreneur are you? And why this question comes up is very simple. Many times you see entrepreneurship trainings being done, and it seems like we're trying to raise more small businesses. Dr. Joseph Figueroa when we had a chat around this training, he said very clearly, we don't want to build more side businesses. And I believe I shared a number of TED Talks with you, and the idea here was see what kind of growth, what kind of business sizes people can actually build, okay? So there are 3 kinds of entrepreneurs. The first is the factor-driven entrepreneur. And I hope that many people in Africa are this kind of entrepreneur, but I hope that we can actually change this narrative, and I start to see change as well, because you're educated, you have been able to, think through different problems in trying to build businesses. A factor-driven entrepreneur is one that is driven by survival. You don't have money, you are in the village, you are in the city, and you think of some low-cost idea that you can come up with, and start to produce it. Start producing juice in a paper bag and start to sell it. Now, there are stories of growth, extreme growth from factor-driven entrepreneurs, but we think as people at our level, we should be thinking even more in terms of how can we become, build businesses that are more sustainable, bigger, better, and actually grow much, 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 much further. So the next is what you call the efficiency-driven entrepreneur. Now, many people in Africa today are, let me just turn my phone off. Many entrepreneurs today on the continent are beginning to become more efficiency-driven entrepreneurs. Now, this is where you start to see things like agro-processing, manufacturing, and the idea is creating efficiency to a production process to increase product quality. And this is what many of our governments are pushing for. Again, very valuable space. As long as you're adding value to something, you are increasing, you're able to solve a problem in the market and be able to generate quite fairly substantial revenue. And also, efficiency-driven entrepreneurship has a lot of backward linkages, which imply very many more jobs created, very much more value brought into the market. The third is innovation-driven entrepreneurs, excuse the typo. And these are driven by scale. So you're pursuing global opportunities, bringing new innovations, and you have a clear competitive advantage. Now, this is the realm that we want to start to play in, because in this case, what you're seeing is companies like Facebook, companies like Flutterwave. These companies are solving global problems. I'll use the example of Flutterwave. There's a problem in processing payments online, because if you're a business trying to sell online, unless you can accept card payments and mobile money, you can't exactly do that. So if, for example, you produce fruit juice in your home and you sell online primarily, you need to be able to accept payments. If you can't accept payments, you can't actually grow your business. So Flutterwave is coming in to solve that particular problem layer, which is very, very important. And as such, they start to see very exponential growth. So these innovation-driven economies or entrepreneurs normally are using technology. It's normally service sector-based, and it's normally very exponential growth. And this is where you start to hear concepts like venture capital coming in and venture funding and exponential growth. So as we start this session, I would like you to think through, where do you want to lie as an entrepreneur? But all this is, like I said again, and I'll keep saying during this session, is all based on problems. Great. So I already explained to you what to expect today. And I'd like to start, okay? This is where we hopefully start to have a bit of fun, right? So first of all, what is a business? Now, there are very many definitions of what a business is. A business creates value, business, there's so many definitions that are put out there. I like to think of a business as a hypothesis. And the good thing is many of you actually are, sorry, my phone keeps going off. Many of you are people in academia, so I'm sure you deal with hypotheses all the time, right? So this is a proposition made as a basis for reasoning, without any assumption. So you will basically say that if I produce mint green tea, the market will buy it. Okay. In reality, there's no basis unless you can be able to fully validate this basis, validate the problem. How many people have this problem? How many people want to be able to, consume mint tea as a result? What's their reason? What's their pain? Is it because mint tea helps you clear out congestion in your throat? What is the pain the customer has? I mean, today you're seeing so many companies producing sanitizer, okay? A few years ago, a company in Kenya, I think it is, called Saraya, it's actually, I think, in Uganda as well, produced a product called Saraya. Saraya is a hand-based sanitizer or health-based sanitizer. This was initially produced on the basis of the market will need, hospitals need sanitizer, as such they will buy it, okay? And this worked. But with COVID, on the basis of, again, the data that proves that people have to have sanitizer. Now they see so much growth. And profit is the one way that you actually prove your business hypothesis. Are you making a profit? Does the market want your product? Are they buying your product? Okay, so I would like to say and state very clearly, your business should start with a problem. Your business should start with a pain that the customer has. And what types of problems are there? And I want us to spend a bit of time understanding these and appreciating them even more. One, there are social problems. Now, social problems today are some of the most funded areas of business, okay? Because social problems are big. Big problems imply big solutions. Big solutions imply big revenue or big profit and big impact, okay? In the next few slides, I will share with you what they call the Sustainable Development Goals. And these is a number of goals that were identified by the United Nations towards achieving development of the world. And this is towards achievement of Target 2030, which looks at achievement of particular things. And I'll show this to you. And this is very interesting because they actually give you a number of problems that need to be solved. The next problem is frequent problems, okay? So something like mobility. You need to move from point A to point B every day. For the people in Uganda or many other countries across the continent, we've had small motorbikers called border borders. In Rwanda, they're called motos. And these solve the problem of mobility. So someone realizing I can get you from point A to point B, a problem you'll have every day, is a great problem to solve if you can. Communication, people need to talk to each other regularly. So telecommunications companies come in to give you a mobile phone that you can use to talk to one person and the other. Another very interesting problem is dirt. You don't want to be dirty. And it's a problem you have every day because when you wear your clothes in the morning, in the evening, your clothes are dirty, so you need to wash them. Okay? So you need to produce soap to wash clothes. There are mandatory problems, and these mandatory problems are things that have to be solved. So for example, unemployment, right? It is something that people face, and it happens constantly, and it has to be solved. Okay, and so this is where you see things like job sites coming up, or employment portals, or Then there's urgent problems. And as we discuss these problems, I want you to start to think about what kind of problems does COVID bring up, and where do they lie within this classification? Because as we get there, you'll start to appreciate more and more what kind of gaps exist, what kind of gaps can be solved, okay? So urgent problems include things like refugees, and what you're seeing is organizations like the UNHCR or UNCDF focusing heavily on solving refugee problems. Because what happens when you have refugees in the country, right? One, you may have problems around food, you may have problems around healthcare, because you don't know where refugees are coming in from, and what do they have in their communities. There's so many problems within themselves. There's problems around sanitation, and we need to be able to solve this. So you start to think through, how can I build solutions around that. Regulatory problems. This is a very interesting one, because today in almost every country across the continent, we're being told that we must adhere to a number of standard operating procedures to be able to manage the COVID pandemic, right? So what does that mean? That means that there's a problem around sanitizer, around handheld thermometers, around masks. Face masks have become such a big business in a period of 3 months. Before, face masks were bought in small quantities, mainly for hospitals. But today you're seeing so many companies coming up to produce face masks. The last one is big problems. Now, big problems include things like unemployment, healthcare. So really big problems that, again, if you can start thinking about how to solve them, I hope you can all hear me. I think I saw a message from somebody about unmuting. Can someone just type in the chat if you can all hear me? Great, perfect. So yeah, so it's important for you to think, what solution, or sorry, what problem do you want to solve? And this is before you start thinking about solutions and businesses and all those things that sound very fancy, because it's nice for us to go and talk about, I have a business, I make so much money, but I want you to think about, what problem are you solving? I mentioned to you, I would share with you some of the very interesting problems out there for you to consider. One is the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, these are 17 goals that have been, put across by the United Nations, and you will notice that there's a lot of funding, sub-funding, and support towards solving any of these goals. And there's some very interesting companies that have come out of many of these goals. Okay, I'll share a story of one company. Unfortunately, I don't have the case, but I'm happy to share it with you. It's a Spanish company called Humanium. And what Humanium did is around, I need to just confirm which goal it was exactly. Around goal number 9, also around goal number 15, I think it was. So there's a problem around how many guns there are in the world today, how many guns are in communities all over the world, okay? And what Humanium did was, they began to go and collect old guns from all over the world, small communities and other places, and they smelted these guns, or they burnt them to produce a metal, okay, which is, it's really a steel alloy, because guns are made from steel, and they began to sell this to big global designers and calling it Humanium, and they created a symbol that looks like one of those chemistry symbols that you see in the periodic table. And they've become so big very quickly because of that. Another company solving goal number 14, and they sound fairly complex, but I'll actually give you an even simpler one. Goal number 14 is a company out of Spain as well. And what they did, because of all the nets, there's fishing nets that are left in the sea by so many companies, they go and collect them and melt them down and produce buttons. Okay, these buttons they're selling to H&M and other organizations. But let's bring it closer to home. Think about goal number 3. Okay, goal number 3 is good health and well-being. And one of the biggest problems we have today is non-communicable diseases, okay? High blood pressure, diabetes, and other problems like that. And in reality, if you just ate properly, there's a huge chance that you can reduce non-communicable diseases. So what the company in Egypt has done is they're producing fruit juice and yogurt. Now, these are things that we do here at a very small scale every day, but without packaging them around these problems clearly, okay? So they're going out and selling this fruit juice and raising money because they're saying that they're giving small communities a way to have better health and well-being, okay? And look at these problems. Look at number 8. Number 8 is decent work and economic growth. This includes things like using technology to create employment. It's basically on creating employment and creating work. And this is where so much of the financing today is going towards, right? So if you understand these goals even better, they will help you be able to think about problems that you can start solving in your communities. I would like to very quickly open a page around the SDGs, okay? This is the link I have shared with you, and it's very interesting. You have the 17 goals all listed, okay? And let's say we try out clean water and sanitation. And this is a problem that we have across most of Africa, okay? So as people who are able to access computers and find this information, look at these problems, look at the targets, right? Ensure availability and stable management of water and sanitation for all. You have problems like lack safely manage drinking water, safely manage sanitation. Again, those seem like big problems, but look at this. No soap and water or alcohol-based hand rub. This in itself is such an interesting problem because it's not that big to solve. You need to create a small company creating soap. There is a company out of the US today that goes to hotels and collects, because when people go to a hotel, you rarely will use the piece of soap you're given in the hotel. So they go to hotels and they collect all this used soap. They heat it together, okay? And then they start to generate new bars of soap, which are sold cheaper because it's not brand new, okay? There's another company that sells unbranded soap because, as you will see later, tomorrow when we touch unit economics, marketing is one of the most expensive things around product development. So what this company does is they will produce soap without branding. Now, because they take the cost of branding out, the soap becomes cheaper, okay? So please find time to look through these SDGs. They should help you also understand or consider a number of other potential problems that could be interesting to consider. The link is in the PowerPoint, and I'll be sharing this PowerPoint with you as well, so you can be able to look at them and get some more information. And again, like I said, what we're trying to do here is understand problem solving, or rather problem identification, and into the basis of a problem that we start to build solutions. Another one is the Africa Union Commission Agenda 2063. These are 7 goals that were highlighted by the African Union, and they also have targets within themselves. And why am I sharing this with you? Is that if you understand and identify problems in your communities aligned to global goals or Pan-African goals, it's easier for you to showcase impact. It's easier for you to raise money. It's easier for you to actually build something that solves a large problem and be able to grow into a very sustainable business that's also scalable. But even then, also think about the smaller problems in your community that you can start with and start to build. And as we go further, I will start showing you more about how to identify smaller problems. Lastly is the Africa Development Bank High 5 goals. Light up and power Africa, feed Africa, integrate, industrialize, improve quality of life. Okay, think about feed Africa. How many agro-processing ideas can come up? There was a huge problem with fortification of food, of cereal in this market, right? And that's another huge opportunity. So as you think about problems, think about your community and think about what it is that you would like to or can possibly solve. Now, I'd like us to discuss a few problems that have been brought around by COVID-19, right? And think through understanding these problems better, understanding what do they imply. One, we have seen a huge social problem in unemployment. Because of COVID, many people have had to lay off their staff, which means very many people are out there unemployed. This implies many people are looking for jobs because they're pain, and I'll explain to you pain and gain tomorrow, or rather on Wednesday, we look a bit more into value delivery, value creation, and what we call the value proposition canvas, which helps you basically matches a solution to a pain, right? So many of these people don't have employment, don't have money, are looking for employment. What kind of solutions can help support, employment? But again, understand how big is the problem around unemployment? How many people in your community? What can be done to solve this? The next problem is limited mobility, where in a case, most countries, because of the lockdown, people are not able to move from point A to point B, okay? Now, this is a real problem brought by COVID, which means that you can't get food, you can't get supplies. And it's very interesting because we've seen small companies coming up to do food delivery, okay, to do market shopping. There's someone I know who runs a catering business, and every morning they will call people riding motorbikes to go and do shopping for them. Now, motorbikes shopping is not something that's been, substantially built. But imagine if you could aggregate a number of motorbikes to go and do shopping for people, and then use technology to support the build around that. Okay, there's the mandatory problems because now everyone must wear a face mask. In some countries, it is illegal to not wear a face mask. You will be arrested for not wearing a face mask. So it is important to consider, with the case of a problem like this, how do you solve that? Think about the urgent problems. And these are happening because in many countries, in South Africa, I think over 5,000 people have died so far. In some other countries, there are hundreds of thousands of people who are dying regularly, right? What does this mean? This means that there's going to be need for services to manage this mortality. There's an absence of a vaccine, so you need to look at finding a vaccine to solve this problem. So it is important, as long as you identify and properly validate a problem and show how big this problem is, it then becomes very interesting with how you start to build solutions. The next problem is regulatory adherence. Okay, today every government is saying you must adhere to SOPs, which means you must have sanitizer, you must have gloves. So think about how many companies are producing products to solve these gaps. But I saw a very interesting one I'd like to share. There's a company that's produced a booth that you walk through and it does a whole body sanitization, right? And this is very innovative because it takes away from, I have to go and buy the sanitizer and spray it and use it. But someone is thinking about, okay, clearly there's a gap here because people are selling hand-based sanitizer. You have the foot tap. I don't know if you've seen the foot tap machine. It basically is a machine that you step on and it will press the sanitizer bottle and spray it into your hands, right? And this is very, very interesting in terms of innovation. But again, it starts with clearly understanding the problem. The last one is big problems. Unemployment is still a big problem. Hunger, people can't go to the farms, have no access to money, access to finance. These are huge gaps that have come up around because of COVID. And while there are government level solutions being built around some of these things, I think it is important for us to also consider what is it that we can do to be able to support many of these challenges. The next thing I'd like to discuss is, of course, when you have clearly understood the problem, then the next thing is the solution, right? Which is a unique idea that solves the problem. So it could be technology, product, service, whatever it is. I do not want to spend any time on this. And the reason why is many times we are quick to go and build something because we think we understand what the problem is. And 90% of the time for very many small businesses, they fail. And they fail because they've not been able to fully empathize with their target audience or just know what their strength is, okay? So we won't go too much into the solution today. We shall discuss solutions later on, and it of course keeps coming up as we go. But I'd like you to consider this, okay? And this is a very interesting concept. Okay, when you've identified a problem, let's use the example of a small juice business that has identified that there's a need to focus on better health and well-being of people and solve non-communicable diseases by using natural products. So they're going to produce fruit juice. Okay, what is your unique advantage? Why you? Why are you the one who is able to do this? And these questions of self-assessments actually help you before you make mistakes, because many times, I'd like to use the example of Uganda because I know Uganda. Uganda is the most entrepreneur country in Africa, but about 97% of these companies fail, or some ridiculous figure like that. And when you ask yourself why, it's because, yes, the people may have identified small community problems, they may have identified solutions that they want to build, but why them? Why are they the ones to be able to build it? Why are they, what resources do you have to ensure that you are the one to be able to successfully build this business? On Wednesday, we'll be looking at something called the business model canvas. And one of the elements in there is, key resources, key partnerships. What do you need to be able to build this value? Okay. So there are four unique advantages that normally people who succeed have. Okay. In some cases, they have all the four. So I think someone asked a question. Okay. Michael, David, someone is asking about a meeting invitation. They'd like to invite some more people, so do share that. Yeah, so there's four things that you want to consider as you work on building your business up, right? So the first is founder ability. What makes you uniquely special to be the one to solve this problem? Is it your education, right? So for example, if you're going to go into healthcare, you must have the skill sets as a biochemist to be able to to create this medication, these products, right? So that's one option that you can actually put across. I mean, across many of the science-based solutions, normally education does matter quite a bit. The next is a special skill set or industry experience. So for example, please mute your microphone. Please mute your microphone. You just came out quick. Yeah, so going to the next one, it is, so what sort of skill set do you have? If you're producing a food-based product, is it a certification that you have as a founder? What's the strength? If it's technology, do you know how to write code? Which is very important, because if you can write code, then you solve one of the problems. And you'll realize as well, when you speak to investors or potential business partners, if somebody raised their hand. Yes, Robert Alia, do you want to ask a question?
Hello?
Yes, Robert.
Sorry, it was a mistake. I'm very sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Great. So just to continue, as you start to, founder ability basically fits, say, what is your special skill set that you bring to the business. The next unique advantage is your market, right? Maybe you are producing fruit juice in, maybe you're producing fruit juice in a slum in Kampala city, right? And you're the only one producing it, and it's low-cost fruit juice. It means that you have a unique market that you're able to actually, please mute your microphones. It's very distracting, especially to run this well. Can we please mute our microphones, kindly?
You're not my member.
Okay, great. Yes, next is around the product. Okay, is the product that we're putting into the market better than what's existing? Sorry, I'll go back to the market. So first of all, the market, is it how big the market is? Is it the potential for growth? Is it the fact that you have a unique market that no one else has? Okay, is it an underserved market opportunity that you have? So for example, like I said, you're producing low-cost mineral water that is safe in a city, and you're the only one who has this technology that is able to produce, this water. So sorry, this mixes into the two, right? So yes, the market, the size, the growth, and access. The third is the product. Is your product better on what's existing? Are you able to produce fresh fruit juice that is able to have a longer shelf life without using any non-organic preservative? Okay, that becomes a very unique product that is just different, and it's better on what's existing, which means the market is going to purchase your product. The last is it how you want to be able to access your customers? So for example, if when you start building a product, you have direct access to the whole of Makerere University exclusively because you've done a deal with the university management. That's very unique in acquisition, right? So these four things are what you need to consider as you begin to think about why is it you to build a product? Is it your founder ability? Is it how unique your solution is? Is it the market that you want to work in? Or is it how you intend to acquire the customers? I will keep checking the chat. So Nelson asks, how do you know that the solution you have identified is the best for the existing problem? And what determines the uptake of your solution, especially for social entrepreneur venture? I'm going to keep this question for a little later on down the road because it's exactly what we're going to be discussing over the next few minutes. So before we go to the next phase, I would like to ask you all to take a few minutes to respond to this. Okay, no, sorry, there's a task coming up after this. It's just a very simple task, but I'd like to give you a case. Okay, this is a small company that started in Uganda a few years ago. This company has grown today to about 10 billion Uganda shillings, which is approximately $3 million in valuation. They've been funded substantially. They've built a huge factory and a huge farm. In my opinion, this is the worst tasting drink I have ever tasted in my life, okay? It is aloe vera and green tea, and there's a lot of claims they make. The claims they're saying is that it's good for your health. They have one option that is it manages fibroids, it will give you reduced blood pressure, and so many claims they make. Very anecdotal, but again, in a market where there's not very much regulation, it is working for them and they're selling a lot of it, right? So what was the problem for someone to come up with such a bad tasting drink that is very successful? One, there is poor health in lower income and informal communities in Uganda. And I'm sure this is something that they considered. So yes, you will receive the slides. You will receive the slides for you to be able to use this to help you. So don't worry about notes. This will be shared with you. So yes, so one is the problem probably was around poor health in the lower income and informal communities. Okay, so because there's non-communicable diseases, there's very many health problems. These guys decide to create an off-the-shelf herbal drink, which is going to give you the right nutrients you need and other health benefits. Like I say, they're also leveraging the fact that there's no very strong regulation to ask questions around how do you prove that your drink will reduce fibroids, or how do you prove that your drink will reduce high blood pressure. But either way, with that in mind, it's also an advantage. The poor regulation can also be an advantage when you're defining it in the market, right? So what is unique about them? One, the founder went to university, studied food science, I think, and knows how to mix herbal medicine. So he knows that if you mix aloe vera and green tea has chlorophyll and aloe vera has, whatever it is that is able to solve some of these problems. The second thing is the market, okay? The market is the people require or want or demand food supplements, okay? Which means that there's willingness to buy these products. And again, there's no regulation. Now, because there's no regulation, you can come to market with all sorts of anecdotal claims. You'll say this will, you remember the story in Madagascar where the president came up and said that we have produced a drink that will heal COVID-19. It's not proven, very anecdotal, and everyone is coming to fight and say yes, 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 and they purchase it. Now, the country is struggling because of that, but that's something else. That just shows you that regulation can also be an opportunity as you build a product, especially when you're starting. The third is that he had first mover advantage with many of the informal or rural market segments, which is very interesting because you see, if you're the first one to come to market with something and you make claims that people believe, in many cases, they'll start to just buy your product, off the shelf. And he went to market fast. Today in Uganda, there's products like Mokama Nayamba and so many other products that unfortunately are not achieving the same success because the market believes in the Kazere product. And lastly, how his mechanism of acquisition. So he built a distribution structure. He has wholesalers and distributors. They actually sell this product at hospitals, right? And that shows how much people believe in this product. So think about your problem very well, validate your problem. And the next stage of this conversation is going to be around problem validation. We're going to take a short 10-minute break. And what I would like to do in this 10 minutes, you don't need to leave the Zoom. I'll just mute my video and mute my microphone. Is I want you I'm trying to just get this up quickly. Yes. I want you to identify problems that you think would be interesting for you to solve. Okay. I'm going to type this in the chat right now, so you have access to the link itself. Just a minute. Yes. So this is a very basic, we shall be using a number of these assessment tools as we go on. I would like you to very quickly, using this link that I've shared in the chat, sorry, I sent it to one person only. Using that link, I'd like you to quickly identify some problem ideas that you may have, very brief. I'll be giving feedback. One of the ways we're approaching this training is we'll have a number of feedback sessions, and I'll be responding to you privately by email or other conversations where we can just talk through what your business problems look like, or community problems look like that you'd like to be able to solve. So use that link. We'll take exactly 10 minutes. It's 11:44, so I'll be back at 11:54. I'll open and maybe share with you some of the problems that have been shared on the link. And we'll then go to the next step of our training, which is around validating the problem. So our 10 minutes start now. I am muting my microphone and muting my video, and I'll be back at exactly 11:55. Please use the link to respond to that. It's very simple, very easy, and it's just...
Yeah, and you don't need to sign out of your Zoom meeting. So you just use the link and continue with the processes.
Hello everyone. Thanks for attending the session.
Great. So it is 11:55. I would like to first of all share with you some of the very interesting responses we have received from what we were just discussing a few minutes ago. Okay. Now, and again, this is going to help us really, as we go into the next stage around problem validation and understanding how to best define problems, right? So I won't show who responded what, but you'll be able to see what I mean. So for example, what problem have you identified that you think a business could solve? And somebody says, financial issues such as inability to refinance, debt collection due to tight conditions. Now we're going into validation, and I'm sure if I sent this out after, you'd respond to it differently, but you know, for who is this person? Who has the financial issue? Okay, so quality education through book production, interesting. For who, right? And this is something that we don't really realize. Many times we have a superficial, huge problem we identify, but we're not certain about who this problem is going to solve. So you have someone saying unemployment, data, and food security. These are very many problems. How do you solve the three at once? Are you going to produce soap that also gives people jobs and food? You know, so it's interesting to think about your problem effectively. Water scarcity for who? You know, is it water scarcity for people in a particular place? Is it very generic and very broad that way? Transport sector. But again, like I said, the next stage goes into validation. So you will see what I mean by this feedback. when I asked the categorization, I like that 54% of you are looking at social problems. Social problems right now are one of the biggest things, biggest issue areas on the continent today, and we need to think about how do we solve things like sanitation, access to food, healthcare problems, and these problems are big with very many people that actually need them to be solved. So it's very interesting that we are seeing results like this. I also like, sorry about that. Yeah. I also like, just a minute, my phone is going off. Sorry. Yeah. So yes, why did you choose this problem? I'm assuming the first answer here, when you need more customers, their debts keep rising. And I'm assuming this goes back to financial issues such as inability to refinance debt due to tight credit conditions. So I'm assuming this person is looking at businesses that have financial challenges and they have, trouble in access to credit, and is building a solution around that. And this goes back to validation. Why this problem? Why? And it's something you should always ask yourself as you start to build a business or start to build a solution. Why you? Interesting. Many people feel like it is because of the market, and you have, like I said before, as someone identifying a problem that you want to be able to start working towards, you can have all the four. You can have founder ability, market size, market conditions, better product, and a good way to acquire. You can have all of them, but be honest to yourself, right? Understand that as a founder, I have the skill for it. The market is there, it's big enough, it's ready, and I can build a product. So understand. And one thing they keep saying as you build a business, never tell lies to yourself, because those lies come back to bite you in the backside when you fail to deliver on a product, okay? And lastly, it looks like more people are looking at building innovation solutions, which is great. Innovation solutions are really service-based in most cases or technology-based, and they scale substantially. I'm seeing some people building factor-driven solutions. So whenever someone types a chat, I will, can I zoom into the slide? Okay. We should be able to share this with you as well, I believe. Okay. Yeah, it's just basically understanding what the responses look like. And why we did this little exercise is to understand what kind of problems are you looking at, and as we start to build, now look at this. I asked, what problem have you identified? And the respondent says, use honey as an alternative source of a manufactured sugar. That is not a problem. That is a solution, right? So your problem is probably because sugar causes diabetes, you want to use honey as a solution. Now that's the next step, but this is not a problem. Accessing foodstuffs by people in my community, this is not a problem. What is their problem? Do they not have access to food? Do they not have, it's not a problem. Unemployment is not a problem. It's a problem, but it's not defined as a problem. What is, is it many people in your community don't have access to jobs, limited availability of indigenous chicken breeds. Now this is interesting, but why is this a problem? Why is limited availability of indigenous chicken breeds a problem? Is it because indigenous chicken breeds taste better? Is it because they live longer? Is it because they have more production yield? Is it what is the problem? This is an element. This is one of those things to consider in your unique advantage. Okay, so that in the market there's not enough indigenous breeds, but your problem is something different. I'll just look at a few more before we continue. Problem: access to breakfast eats, business starting a home bakery. This may not be a problem, right? Because there's so much breakfast out there anyway. So unless you're saying healthy bread or healthy food, or you have to identify something that is actually a problem. This is more like a factor-driven. Actually, this seems more like a factor-driven solution problem, type. Because how do you scale this up? You're looking at starting a home bakery, great. Now, starting a home bakery itself is not a bad thing because it helps you validate your problem. So let's say your problem is there's a gap in access of low-cost bread in a particular part of the city, or there's a gap in access to nutritional, to high nutritional bread in a particular place. As such, you want to start a home bakery to validate your model, show traction, and then use that to raise more money to be able to scale up and grow, okay? I'll just check. See, I like a problem like this. There's a lack of indigenous vegetables in my district. Now, this should be defined. What are indigenous vegetables? But maybe you're looking at a particular nutritional value. So there's a limited access of these vegetables in my district. And this is interesting because here now you look at why did you choose this? Because of maybe nutritional deficiencies in my community. What's your solution? You want to start doing farms, or supporting people in your community to have small farms growing those particular vegetables. And it can be a mix of subsistence and commercial, because yes, what the next question becomes, what is the business model? Are you selling them seeds? What exactly are you doing? So yeah, water scarcity, again, not defined, is a problem, but where, for who, and these are things that we're going to discuss over the next few minutes. Inadequate personnel to closely advise farmers and provide consultant services in the region. Again, this is not a problem. This is like you're trying to make your solution the problem, right? So the problem here is that the farmers either don't know how to plant, or they have very poor quality yield, or very low productivity. That's the problem, right? So you're looking at using consultancy services to provide them with learning around how to be able to get better. Okay, so, and I'd like to reiterate this one last time. It is important to clearly identify what is their pain. Consultancy services are not a pain. I don't care about your consultancy services. I care about showing me how to increase the yield of my business. I'll just look at this one. Last, 75% of wholesale and retail businesses owned and controlled by SMEs in Monrovia are faced with the challenge of free flow of goods and services. Goods are often delayed and sometimes missing during the process of delivery by the Motor Union of Liberia. Now, this is very interesting, right? I like the fact that this person has been able to identify their customer quite well, or the people they are targeting. They've been able to identify the challenge, free inflow of goods and services. I think it's important to eventually define what goods and services these are. They are delayed, and also given a reason why this happens. So the problem here is, seems like people are either stealing products or taking things away from receiving of these goods. So this then makes sense in creating a solution. Either it's a security solution, or it's a digital stamping solution so you can track them, or it's a tracking solution. And this is very interesting, right? So we need to try to make sure that as we put this out, we are sort of able to really identify, need to deliver basic commodities such as food items to consumers' doorstep due to limited mobility. Okay, this is interesting because they've identified a clear problem, limited mobility. They've also brought the solution into it. And remember, like I said, please do not start with a solution. Just focus on identifying the problem very clearly. We'll now go to the next stage, which is validating the problem and creating a solution. And here we'll use design thinking to be able to achieve this. I'll be defining to you what design thinking is, and I'm going to give you, again, I'm giving you the basics. A lot of this information is actually available online, and if you spend time doing some research, you'll find more in-depth information around design thinking. What I'm able to give you is to start you thinking around it. I'll also give you one tool that can help you do something called a design sprint with your customers to sort of help you really understand what their problem is. So design thinking can be described as a discipline that uses the designer sensibility. In this case, you are the problem solver, you are the designer, okay? And methods to match people's needs to what is technologically feasible. I would like to cancel out the word technologically and use the word feasible, okay? What viable business strategy can convert into customer value and market opportunity? Remember, value is only created if you're able to solve my pain. If I'm hungry and you give me food, you have solved my hunger problem, right? So design thinking is a framework that was built by a company called IDEO. It's a huge global consulting firm, and they work with companies to help them rethink or redesign their products or solutions that they sell into the market. And it goes down to one particular thing, right? It goes down to a business, an idea. It all starts or should always start with the customer, okay? So design thinking uses a 5-step process, which is empathize, define, ideate or create the solution, prototype it, test it, and in this circle between please mute your microphone kindly. In the circle between ideation, prototyping, and testing, you're able to, of course, build a product that you start to scale.
David,
yes.
Kindly share the screen.
Oh, sorry. Apologies. I thought. Okay. I hope you can all see the screen now. Sorry, I missed that. So I'll go back here. Okay. So I explained to you what design thinking was. Discipline using sensibility and methods to be able to match people's needs to solutions that are feasible and be able to create viable business strategies that can convert into customer value. And I explained to you value basically should be able to match your recipient's needs. If you solve my need, there's value, I'm happy to pay for it. I explained to you that design thinking basically is looking at, whenever somebody types a chat, I will look at it. Okay. So yeah, it basically facilitates human-centered creative design to be able to solve, customers' problem. But it all starts with empathizing, clearly understanding your customer, being able to define the problem, ideate, so basically build ideas or create ideas, prototype, test, and then, with validation, be able to scale up. Like I said, I am giving you the basics only. I will also give you a task to be able to try out. But a lot of this information, I can actually share a few more resources after the training for you to sort of read about and learn. But the point here is that as you build a business, as you build a solution, the most important person is who are you building it for and what is the problem that they have. And if you understand that effectively, it will be easy for you to manage how you build your solution and how it grows. So let's start with the first bit, empathizing. And I will use a case as I go through this, and we'll use, we discussed the juice company before, so I think I like agro-processing, so I think we'll try to use agro-processing as we do this, okay? So who is the customer, first of all? We're trying to sell fruit juice in the city of Kampala in Uganda. Our customer is a middle-class office working individual. So we define the customer clearly, okay? What is their need? Nutritional value, they get thirsty when it is hot. They need to, diet changes.
David.
Yes, Anthony.
Yeah, I just needed to, Nelson Papi, are you on? If you're still on, you asked a question at earlier on. You posed about 3 questions or 2 questions in one. How do you know that the solution you have identified is the best for existing problem? What determines the uptake of your solution, especially for the social entrepreneur venture? So this slide will help you sort of to map these processes, and you'll be beginning to eventually respond and answer some of these questions. So I just needed to check that some of the processes and the questions that were raised earlier on are part of this process in the design thinking. You're going to be able to respond and answer. You'll be finding that answers to some of these questions are coming up.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anthony. Again, Nelson, yes, this really feeds into what you asked earlier, because we've gone from identifying the problem, which we've been able to look at, okay, and now we're working towards actually validating it and making sure it works. So the next thing is, what is their need? Like I explained to you, this could be thirst, nutritional value, dieting, whatever it is, right? So thinking through this customer's problem. What do they do? Where do they work? They work in the city, in the particular office. Now, it is important, and it is very, very important to speak to your customers during this process, right? So it could be by observing them, it could be actual research or conversations, just to get a feel. Now, you are not looking at doing this at scale. Right? This is very scaled down. You will use a few respondents that you will speak to be able to understand this. And when I share with you the tools to help you with this process, it's very quick. It's about 30 minutes. Meet someone, talk to them, understand in relation to what you're trying to build. So in this case, you're trying to build a juice brand. You would brief the respondent. We're thinking about this. What's your problem, right? The next thing is understand the customer's exact problem. So you have the framework, which is, yeah, we're in agro-processing, we're thinking about, but who is this customer that you're doing this for? You have a problem with my volume. Let me see if I can increase the microphone volume just a minute. How many people have a problem with my volume? I need to just check. I'm just trying to increase. Okay, good. Yes, Amwine, you will have a question? Amwine Lamech, you raised your hand.
I was also referring to the volume. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah, I was also referring to the volume.
Okay, let me try. Let me see if I can increase it. But I'll continue now because it sounds like some people are in very loud places also. I have tried to increase on my side, so let's just continue. Yeah, so create personas. A persona basically is a personification of this person, right? Of this individual you're targeting. So they are female, they live in a particular part of the city. If it's a social problem, they're female, they live in this slum or this part of this suburb of the city. They do this, they drive a car, they really understand your customer, understand their need. And remember, you've spent time empathizing and observing or talking to them, right? So now you have a better understanding of who they are. And what are the insights? They are willing to spend X amount of money. They are willing to they have a fridge at home, so they can put your bottle in the fridge so it will actually last longer, okay? And this is at the very base level, okay? The next bit is you ideate. Now, ideation is coming from the fact that you understand the customer, you understand their problem, you know what exactly it is that they want, okay? And this works really across the board. This is not unique to building of technology. No, this works with building of agro-processing products, fruit juice. It works with building a car. It works across the board, this framework. Okay? And this is only one of the frameworks. There's a number of other frameworks that are out there. Okay? When you finish understanding the customer and you begin to ideate, so now because our target customer is a female that lives in the middle of this, that lives in a suburb close to the city, drives a car, can afford to, has a fridge at home, can afford to spend $2 on a product, we're going to say, and they want to be healthy and they want to have nutritional value in the products that they get, we are going to build cold pressed fruit juice, which incorporates more herbal-based additives. This is just hypothetical, okay? So you're going to start cold pressed celery with orange as a mix, which has a shorter shelf life because the person has a fridge, and that's the product you're going to put out there, okay? When you've been able to build that or to ideate this process, you prototype it, go home, okay? And I keep saying this, before you think about building business plans and business models, before all that, okay? You go home and you build the most basic version of this product. Use a blender, get the raw materials, blend the juice, pour it in a glass, take it to your customer and let them taste it. When they taste, they'll tell you it's too sweet, doesn't taste good enough, I don't see this value, I don't see that value. You can even do the logo so you have a small brand on it so they see it. It's very interesting what's happening in technology today because some companies using this same approach are going on to create very basic versions of their platforms using things like Google Sheets, right? They get a number of services and put something out. They would use weeks to create a small front end and just get feedback. Because what feedback does for you is that it helps you understand the customer's perception of what you want them to try out, okay? And that's the last step, which is testing. So put the product out there. You're testing for acceptance in terms of what's the taste of the product. Remember, we're using fruit juice as an idea here. What does it taste like? You're looking at, are they willing to pay the price that you want them to pay? Okay. Do they like the shape of the bottle? All these little things you want to test for. And it's important to have a clear test plan with which you're basing on. Okay. So I'll just quickly run through these 5 steps, and I'll share this with you, and I'll share more resources to take you more in depth into design thinking. But the whole idea is start your business, start your solution from the customer's perspective. Start by understanding what the customer's problem, who the customer is, what they want, what they're about, what their problem is, what kind of ideate based on your insights, and then prototype and test. Now, building a prototype is a very interesting product. It's a very interesting way to be able to start the process of testing and validating your solution, right? So, like I said before, build the most basic version of your product that you can release, that you can put out there, okay? It should have enough value that people are willing to use it. Now, I will use the image on the right, as you can see. MVP 1. So MVP is minimum viable product. So this normally works in technology, but again, for this case, since it's a general training, some people may be trying to build technology or building physical product or service. So this is the same, okay? In this case, the problem is you need to get from one side of the river to the other side. It's an actual problem, okay? Because of communication, mobility, moving food around. Please mute your microphones so we can be able to get through this. Yeah. So being able to move from one side of this land to the other, okay? So one thing you can do is go and spend so much money and build MVP 4, but then you don't show you actually have a market big enough for MVP 4. You're not sure if you have enough product to be able enough customers to actually buy your product, or the interest and willingness to purchase your product, right? So what do? You put one plank across the 2 points of the river, okay? You watch and see if someone can go from that point to the other. This is the most basic. So take this as an example that you would use in your juice factory or your business services, business consulting services. If you're in consulting, what are you in consulting about, right? Let's go back to the problem in Monrovia, which I found quite interesting. You want to find a way to make sure people receive their products more securely. So let's assume you're working at the port and you're providing a transport solution from the port to the customers. Find 2 customers, 1, 2, sit with them, using design thinking, understand their problem very effectively. Build a solution which is, say, for example, you're going to say, we're going to use digital tracking. We're going to place digital tracking or digital seals on your container as it moves from the port to the city, to your location, okay? If it works for one and works effectively for one, and you're seeing less theft of these products, then you say, fine, how do we scale it up? And this goes to MVP 2. So maybe from MVP 1, you realize that as much as we have a way to move from one point of the river to the other, the problem is that it's not able to carry enough weight, okay? So without being able to carry enough weight, many customers will not use this bridge. They'll go to the bridge that's further downstream. So what do? Let us add a bit of support and make it 2 planks. So now it can actually carry more weight. Okay, this goes back to how you build your MVP. So you can move a product from the port to the wholesaler effectively, but then they want, maybe it's only the size of a small motorcycle. You want to increase capacity. So now you build a bigger seal, or you build another tracking solution, right? The next is MVP 3. And like I said, 1, on the left, enough value so people can try it out. 2, be able to get early adopters to be willing to try it out. And 3, get a feedback loop. So you keep talking to your customer constantly to be able to understand, does it solve their problem? So in this case, you can increase the weight, but then some people have cars. They also want to cross with cars. So what does that mean? We need to widen the bridge. Yes, Madrin, you raised your hand. Madrin Kimeni? Okay, I will continue. So MVP 3 basically is you're now scaling up a little bit, right? And lastly goes to MVP4, where you have identified what the challenge is. So you keep talking to your customer constantly through this process. And this should change the perception of, if you're going to build a business, think of an idea, build a solution, begin to scale it up. There are so many more problems you'll be able to save yourself if you go through a phased process of prototyping, implementation, feedback, and scale up based on the feedback that you're receiving from your customers, okay? Testing a prototype is very important, and how you approach the testing. These are 3 steps that you can look at. 1, does your solution solve the customer's problem? You have a clear understanding of what the customer's problem is. You've spent time speaking to your customer, empathizing, and when you take to them the most basic version of the product, they will tell you if it solves their problem or not, okay? Secondly, the one way to actually prove something works for somebody is if they're willing to pay for it. Please mute your microphone. Is if they're willing to pay for it, okay? And this comes down to how many units of the prototype have you been able to sell, which is very important. So as you go to market, you're asking yourself, I intend to sell 50 units, and that's your target. If you're not selling the 50 units, why are you selling the 50 units? Talk to your customers, understand from them where the gaps are and where the problems are, okay? The other one is, how many customers are you engaging? Remember at the start, I said, try to keep growing at 10%, okay? So you've gone out, you've built this MVP or this prototype, you've tested it, and you are getting, sorry, someone asked a question. Yeah, and you are getting X number of sales happening, sorry, X number of customers being, I lost my train of thought. Yes, going back to, sorry, now, number of customers engaged, okay? So please, can you please mute your microphone? There's a microphone that is quite distracting in the background. I don't know who that is, please mute it. Thank you. So yeah, number of customers engaged can also be a metric. How many people have you spoken to? The more people you speak to, the more feedback you receive. And lastly, get the most simplified version of your product and test it against the metrics you've put out, okay? So it's a 3-step process that you'll see here. Today, we're looking at problem, solution, fit, okay? Which is, we're almost done with today's session actually, but that's the first step of it. When you have been able to validate your problem, understand it, empathize with the customer, know who your customer is, know what they want, and check using prototyping or MVP methodology to check if the customers actually want your product, then you go into product market fit, right? Which is, does your solution actually solve the problem of the market? And when you achieve product market fit, as we shall go through on Wednesday, that's when you start to see scale or exponential growth. So for task 2, which we shall not do this now, we shall be emailing you a number of resources. I'll just walk you through one of the resources. One of the resources we shall be giving you today is to have you run a design sprint with some of your customers. This is something you will do through tomorrow. And on Wednesday, when we have the next conversation, I will invite a few of you to share with us what your design process looks like. Remember, you've come up with your problems. I want you to share with us what your design process looks like. I'll also be able to give feedback during most of the day over email or just over WhatsApp in terms of how to think through what your problem validation looks like, okay? So the task will basically request you to create, to define a basic prototype using design thinking, and how you will test it, how you will actually get people to, how people will be able to try it out. And that will help us to better understand what solution you want to put out. This is a tool I'm going to share with you. Just a minute, yes. So this is a very simple tool that this is a very interesting question by IPA. Is it possible to modify the problem identified to suit what you explained earlier? The problem is your customer's problem, right? So if you've identified the problem that you want to be able to work on, yes, you should be able to, sorry, if you've identified the problem and then when you speak to the customers, they tell you that's not actually our problem. So there's a problem framework, right? and then you start to identify the actual problem that you want to solve. So for example, the gentleman or the lady who shared something around products disappearing in Monrovia, that's the framework. This is something you've identified. Right? But when you speak to the customers, you'll be able to better understand, is it really what their problem is? You know, is moving goods from one point to the other the problem? Maybe they even understand why they're losing these goods. Right? So it helps you better validate the problem. Ian asked, please me that while pitching a business plan, what does the pitching entail? It is the whole document of the business plan. I don't understand the question, but what I can say is on the last
I think what, David, what Ian wants to ask is really that while pitching a business plan, what does the pitching entail?
Yes.
Is it the whole document of the business plan?
Yes. So on Friday, on the last session, we are going to go through communication, which includes pitching. Okay. Now, I'll give you a quick teaser. In the past, people would go and pitch business plans, okay? In reality, for most investors today and for most business development processes, there are about 6 things that people really care about and understanding very clearly. Number one is, what is the problem? It goes back to the problem. What is the problem? What is the solution? How big is the market? Okay. How well do you understand your market? 3, what is your business model? How do you make money from this market? And this should also entail what you call unit economics. Lastly is the team. Okay, so team, product, and growth. Now we're going to be going through this on Friday, so you'll be able to understand this very well. And hopefully you'll be able to spend some time building your own pitch deck. And I'll be happy to give you feedback and support with the process of doing this, okay? So let us try to maintain the flow of the training, and we finish this and we'll probably answer a number of questions. Okay, so this is a task that you will receive an email after the session. One is have a chat where you gain empathy around the problem. So you can explain to your person, we're looking at trying to solve gaps around nutrition, and we're thinking around, maybe fruit juice, just general, make an introduction of what you want to, what you're thinking about doing, right? Ask the customer, what are your problems? What are the gaps you have in, let's say, mobility, or in your business, or in nutrition? Then ask them again, after the first bit, ask them again to dig a bit deeper. Is there more information that you don't have? Any insight that you'd like us to have? Okay, any insight you'd like to be able to get from the respondent. Capture your findings. What is your, in this case it's called partner, what are they trying to achieve? Is it nutrition? Is it quenching of their thirst? And then list down what are the new learnings that you have. This is a standard design sprint process. So this idea is just to help you try out with a customer. It may not be as easy, but you'll be able to get a bit of feedback. Then number 4, and this is it's a problem statement, okay? And this is very interesting, especially as you build a business. So for my recipient, customer X, they need to find a way to solve this problem, to enjoy, to receive more nutrients, whatever it is, okay? Because this is something that you understand. They don't have enough product on the market. What is the insight that you have, okay? And if there's any complexity, feel free to ask me any questions. I'll be happy to answer. Madrin is asking about business plans. We are going to be tackling, I don't know if you were here at the start, Madrin. At the start, I said, before we think about the business plan, let's be able to clearly define the problem, solution, and the business, because that is how you pitch. That is how you actually go on to ask to raise money and raise financing, okay? And we'll be discussing this as we go on. So kindly, let's allow the process. And by the time we're done on Friday, I'm sure you'll be able to answer that question yourself. So sketch radical ways to meet your users' needs. Now, many times a number of people struggle with this part, but if it's fruit juice, sketch a bottle. Draw what the bottle would look like. If it's a technology solution, sketch the solution, okay? So it is as simple as that. Sketch it, share the idea, take it back to your customer and ask the customer, if I gave you this, what do you think about it? Okay. And then generate a final solution that you want to take to the market. Okay. This is normally when you're doing a design sprint, what happens is we'd use resources in a room to do this, but since you're on your own, I don't mind you just sharing it and sharing. So you can do the sketches, or if you have an actual product, you can share it to the customer. These are the questions you want to ask. One is, what does the customer like about your product? Two is, what could be improved? Do they have any questions or ideas? So I will share this with you, and I can also go ahead and share with you what they call a facilitator's guide. So you can actually read through that and understand. This process is really supposed to just help you get, based on our trading profiling, you don't have your businesses yet, you're starting towards the process. So this is to help you think through your idea, understand your problem effectively, and be able to come up with a few radical solutions as rough as possible. Don't expect it to be perfect. It should be as rough as possible that you're going to use yes, we are going to send you, you want to receive a sample of the task. I will send a facilitator's guide, which will guide you through the process. So it's quite simple as well. You don't need to receive Esther Mube. I will be sharing a guide for you to use to do this task. Okay. So what I expect from you tomorrow, and I'll have some of you come on to present tomorrow, is your most basic understanding of your customer and their problem and what kind of radical solutions you're thinking about trying to solve. Yes, Luchamozi, you've raised your hand. Okay, before we start, I see many questions coming through, which is very good. Let me just do a quick recap, and then I'll begin to tackle the questions that are coming through. This will just take, let's do a quick recap, and then we will move to the questions that are coming up. Okay, so as a quick recap, this is what we've touched today. One is, I hope we appreciate that businesses should always start with problems. Two, it is important for you to understand your unique advantage as you start. Why is it you to be able to build this solution? The third is use design thinking to understand your customer, to define their problem, ideate on solutions, build prototypes, test, validate, iterate until you get it right. The first product that you take to the market normally will not be the right one. You need to actually change based on a feedback loop that you create with customers. And lastly, always build a very simple prototype or minimum viable product that you can test with customers to get feedback. And you will realize the thing I keep saying here is test, 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 okay? This is the end of our presentation of our lesson today. I've shared with you what the task is. I'll also be sharing with you an email which you'll receive from David, which will include the resources for the next task. And tomorrow I'll have some of you come on to present and share what your findings are like. I'd like us to take the questions now. So I'll start with, I think there was a question from somebody who asked, this is Arinitwe Allen. My idea is around the fight of malaria. Does this fit in the RUFORUM capacity building? I will be using essential oils. So this is really capacity building around entrepreneurship training. We're trying to help you figure out how best to identify the problem you're solving, validate the problem and the need, and then be able to build solutions around it. So yes, I believe it does. I think Anthony will probably, Dr. Anthony will also answer or add to that a bit. But then from this discussion that we have had, Alan, you have identified a really good problem, which is malaria is prevalent in many Ugandan communities and it kills people. Medication may be expensive and essential oils may be a solution for that. So one, you need to clearly validate your problem in terms of Do the customers actually think malaria is a problem? Who is your target customer? And then what solutions do they think would work for them? When you propose your essential oil solution, do they like the product? How much are they willing to pay for essential oils? Do they like the brand you've come up with? And then as we go to more, on Wednesday, we'll have a very interesting session which works through your business modeling, right? So how do you move from generating value or creating value based on customers' problems, taking this problem to the market? What does it cost you to build? How much do you make from it? Okay. So this is a very good problem, and I think this training will be good for you. And if you spend some time doing this design thinking process where you're sort of understanding your customer, who you're going to sell to, because essential oils, are they expensive? Are they cheap? Are they targeted at the rural market or the urban market? Where are they targeted? So these are things you need to understand. I'd like to also answer Nelson's question. What is the best consideration for an ICT-driven solution in an environment with several competitors? We shall be going through business modeling tomorrow and the day and understanding of competition. But here's the thing: what ICT solution are you developing? Okay, many times, many IT or ICT developers start to build things without actually validating the problem. The other thing is ICT is only a channel. ICT is a channel to solve somebody's problem. Okay. In the session tomorrow, there's a very interesting slide that I put up that I would use, and it asks the question: why do you buy a washing machine? Okay, do you buy a washing machine to have it, or because you want clean clothes? Okay, so washing machines are technology, but that technology has come in to solve the problem of dirt, which is going to give you the value in the form of clean clothes. Okay, so if you define your customer very well, define your customer's problem very well. Let me use an example of a successful ICT company today on the continent. There's a small company called Yoho. Actually, let me use Pesapal. Pesapal is a company that is in Uganda and East Africa. What Pesapal identified is that small and medium-sized business retailers have a problem in collecting payments digitally, because when I come to you today, if I have a Visa card, you won't get money from me, okay? And the cost of getting a bigger point of sale terminal is much higher. You must have a lot of money going through the bank. So they built a small point of sale terminal called Sabi, which is about this size, and it accepts cards. It will accept mobile money and other similar payments, right? So they've been able to clearly identify a problem that they want to solve with technology. So the competition, while they're in fintech, and fintech is a very big space, they've been able to find a specific space with which they're solving a problem that they have validated in the market, and they're now being able to grow this, okay? Would this be a case for efficiency of entrepreneurs as well? Luchamuzi, I don't understand what the question is. We explained earlier in the conversation that there's efficiency-driven entrepreneurs who are more around manufacturing or increasing value generated from existing resources. So if you can just clarify what the question is. Apia, Ipa Becker asks, what of the case of the problem that is to solve is in the form of service provision? A solution, and I'll reiterate this, a solution is one that is able to solve the need of a customer, right? It can be a service, it can be technology, it can be a product. You will not start saying that I'm going to build, for example, in Uganda, okay? If you came up with Uber for helicopters, there are no helicopters. There is no market for the helicopter Uber. It will not work. So before you build a solution, identify the problem, identify the customer who has that problem very well, validate your problem with your customer through empathizing, defining the problem clearly, and then ideate, prototype, and test and be able to figure that out. Okay, so service, product, it is the same process. You need to identify and understand the problem very well. Kiza Margaret, can I do a consumer assessment on my social media platform instead of talking face to face? Yes, this is actually perfect. I think there are so many tools out there to help you talk to your customers. If you ask them a question and they come back to you with particular themes, and you get feedback from them. The point is you must create a feedback loop, and also what are the metrics that you're testing, right? Is it how many products are they buying? Is it the taste? What are you testing, right? The basic research, like I said, the design thinking process drives you to create a very rough prototype. I'll share a story of a company called Zappos. Zappos is one of the biggest global seller of shoes all over the world. They sell shoes online. Zappos started by a guy, I think it was in Spain as well. And what he did was he went to a shop somewhere, he took pictures of a few shoes, put them on a WordPress site, and asked people if they want to buy them. And he promised same-day delivery in a particular space, a particular area, and gave them a way to get feedback constantly. He sold the first, I think, 10 pairs of shoes in about a week, and he figured out that this business actually works, and he began to scale based on that. He asked the customers what problems they had. He asked the customers, did they like the style of the shoes? He asked the customers a number of questions that they felt fed into, his customer service process, right? And that way he began to scale the business up. But it started with him clearly understanding what the customer's problem was. And you can use very many tools for this. You can pick up the phone and call, use social media. The most important thing is always talk to your customer, and talk to your customer constantly. We have another session starting next week. I'm not sure, maybe you can, if you have an existing small business that you're trying out, you can apply to join that as well. That will be for more developed businesses, and we'll be looking at other things like distribution, sales and marketing, support and communication. So these are things to consider. Esther asked, how do I get out of the fear of many competitors for a given business idea so I can move on with my plan? It's a very good question. First of all, if you as a startup are playing in a space with very many competitors, you need to understand what is your unique advantage and what makes you different from the competition. Okay? If it's a very competitive space, for example, if you're going into something like processed fruit juice. Now, processed fruit juice is actually a very competitive space, but there's also very big opportunities, right? Like I shared the case with Kazire, who have gone on to produce a very successful fruit juice product. But what they did was understand, and again, I can't stop saying this. When you understand the customer you're selling to, understand what gap there is, okay? What gap there is, then you are able to start building a solution around that particular gap. And I like the question from Kiza Margaret, which is asking, does the problem have to be general or specific? And I'm going to answer the two together. A problem has to be specific. It has to be as specific as to a community, an area that you're looking at solving the problem for initially. It has to be, now, there's something called market sizing, where you say, listen, this problem is felt by so many people all over the continent. But to start, as you start to build your prototype, it should be based on an area. So we say that nutritional value is very low. They have very low iron or very low nutritional value X in a slum in Kampala called Katanga, right? You have identified the geographical location. You have identified the person by creating the persona. Mothers in these areas have issues with childbirth because of lack of iron or expensive cost of folic acid pills. It's called folic something. Yeah. So you have to be very specific on your problem as you start to work towards it. When you validate the problem, right, you show that 10 people are actually buying your product, then you start to increase it and start to increase the number. Okay. Dick asks, so Ian asks, you have mentioned about a model while pitching. Which model I suppose to include? Yes, there are standard models to use while pitching. We shall be going through one on Friday on the last date. And we'll go through the different elements and how to put some across. I will probably share with you a pitch deck of a business I run, so you can actually get a feel of what the pitch looks like. And I'd be happy for you to give me feedback as well as my potential customers if you are. Okay, so Dick asks, Kenya imports most of the eggs from Uganda, especially from my area. I think opening a layers poultry farm would be a good project. Now, this has been asked by Dick. Kenya imports more eggs from Uganda, yes. From my area, yes. I think of opening a layers poultry farm as a good project. Now, there's a problem, right? Because Kenya needs to import eggs. Maybe Dick's area is close to the border, which means his unique advantage is cost of export is lower or lower transportation. Please mute your microphone. Yeah, so maybe, what is the unique advantage that you have? Because for you to set up a big layer farm, if you have no difference, it might be hard. Now, in some of those projects, some of those areas that are very competitive, your unique advantage could be resources as well, because maybe you have the capacity to build a big farm very quickly. Maybe you have access to a unique market. You've got a contract from a company in Kenya that guarantees they will buy your product. What is the unique advantage? The problem has been identified, but of the other 4 resources, market, you have, in this case, you have founder ability. Maybe you know how to raise layers. You have the market, because Kenya does buy its eggs from Uganda. Yes. Acquisition maybe is your strongest point, and this is the highest because you have a contract already, or it is the 4th, which was just a minute, getting these things as well. Or it's the 4th, which was I lost it. Where did I put it? Yes, the 4th, which was the product, because the product is the same, so there's no real strength there. Maybe your eggs are bigger than what is currently on the market. Yes. Next question, I answered the question around, does a problem have to be general specific? Problems should be specific. Evans, most of us hail from rural homes where active economy revolves around agro-based components from smallholder farmers. This presents opportune for agro-processing that needs to be tapped. How best can we harbor this? I will say this until you're tired of it. What gap are you identifying? What problem are you identifying? Is it that farmers are not getting enough at the farm price? Is it that farmers are not, there's a lot of farm wastage, which means as a social venture, you're going to run agro-processing, or you're producing fruit juice. I know somebody who produces chili, and they're trying to work with farmers in one of the regions to be able to run chili production cycles with them, so they can sell a processed product as opposed to selling farm-based output. I think agro-processing is the best or biggest potential business to implement, but how do you start? Now, we have discussed the framework around design thinking. You can start by identify the problem, why, then look at what products you can produce with the farmers. So if you have tomatoes and you can produce tomato sauce, or you can produce relishes or things like that, that's what you need to start doing. Start in your kitchen, start with a prototype, let the market taste it, give you feedback. If the feedback is good, increase product production, see if you can go on to scale. And let me say this, you do not need a lot of money to start building a prototype, okay? Think about this. If you wanted to produce fried bananas, for example, you have so many bananas, plantains in your farm, and they're rotting. For you to go and get cooking oil, pour in a saucepan and fry those bananas, put them in a pack and sell them and see if customers want to buy them, you don't need millions of that to be able to do that. You just need to start. You need to start by saying, let me test this, see what the response is like. If the people are buying 10, then you start thinking about, how do I scale up? How do I then start producing 20 or 30? How do I start to increase distribution? These are the things to start looking at. And these are themes that we go into later. Don't think that far. Today, think about problem, solution, prototype, test. If you can do those things, you can build a multi-million-dollar business, okay? Luchamuzi, determining and verification of the problem seems like a factor-driven entrepreneurship state. In efficiency, the case seems to involve improving quality and building efficiency in production. Does that mean that the search in the case is for efficient solution to add quality to, or to start, I will say this until you get tired of hearing it, start with identifying a problem. Efficiency solutions or innovative solutions start with identifying a problem. Now, it then comes to how big is the market, how are you going to do it? How are you going to start to scale it up, right? So, for example, because farmers have lots of bananas rotting in the field and you're going to provide a truck to move them from point A to point B, right? It's actually efficiency, because what you technically are doing is adding value from the market perspective. You're helping them reach a market that gives them more value. But then What's the market size? What's the competition? These are things to consider as you go. Is it also their problem because they already have middlemen who are doing that for them, right? So the next thing you need to think about is how do you start adding value to that process? So the value is, again, it's connected to the need, the problem, and how you solve your target audience customers. So we'll discuss this more as we discuss the business model on Wednesday. I think it's going to be a very exciting session that you'll all be looking forward to. The third is Bishop Stewart, you've attended a group webinar on projection. Yes, finance is a very important step of building a business, projections and building projections. Now, I'm not taking away from the webinar that you've attended. What I'd like to say, this is from my personal experience. We've raised a lot of money on the basis of 5-year projections. And it's important to build projections. Projections, Excel sheets, they rarely help you grow a business. You should have projections, and we'll get to that, okay? But I've been advised that many of you don't have ideas yet or businesses yet, and you're starting out. So before you think about, I'm going to become a billionaire one day, think about selling 1 unit. What is that 1 unit? Who is that 1 unit going to be able to, to be sold to? Then you begin to build projections. Many times we get confused because we're trying to sell a $1 million business before we have sold 1 unit, okay? So start by validating, problem clearly, validating, sell to 10, sell to 20, and begin to scale up, okay? And what's interesting about fundraising is this, and unfortunately we won't have a session on fundraising, maybe I can discuss a few things. The biggest misconception is that you will take an idea to a funder and they give you money. It's very hard. But if you go to a funder and tell them, I have been able to build, to package 100 packs of fried plantain and sell them, I want to increase this to 1,000 packs. You show that you know what you're talking about. You have experience in the market. You validated the gap. You have tested it. And someone feels like I can trust you with my money because you're basically being able to, trying to scale it up. So I hope that answers your question. Projections are important, but where we are at this point, as you're starting out, focus on the basics. Focus on being able to validate your problem, identifying what is not available in the market, and then being able to grow it. I will take about 2 or 3 more questions. We're almost done. Aaron asks, apart from expanding my prototype by at least 10%, what else should I consider? Feedback. Do the customers like your product? Are they willing to pay for it? How much are they willing to pay for it? Again, this question will also be answered very well in tomorrow's session because there's a number of things you need to consider as you build a business model, as you start to actually take a product out. Like I said, the first step for now is think about, creating a prototype, test it. If you're trying to do a juice factory, produce juice in your home, put it in a bottle or in a glass and get people to test and say this juice is very good. If the juice is good, the next step is we need to see how to package it, how to preserve it if necessary. These are things to start considering, but based on the starting point. Wilborn Yegon says, is it possible to start a business without finance? No, it is possible, but also no. And here's why. You can start by saying you don't need to, if you can find a way to, okay, let's not call it finance, let's call it resources, okay? You can go to a farmer who has products, get the farmer to give you your products, his products, and you go and sell them online, let's say online on a marketplace or something like that, and you simply are a middleman. Okay, that you don't need money to become a middleman, and you can make a lot of money. People make so much money selling houses. But then to build an innovation-based business or an efficiency-based business, you need some money. But if you focus on validation, so I'll use the example. I'm sure you've heard about very many funds out there. So in Uganda, you have places like the Innovation Village who are funding entrepreneurs. You have a number of programs that actively fund entrepreneurs today, okay? But for you to be able to go and do that, you must show me some traction. You must show me that if it's agro-processing, you've been able to create a base product and you have some feedback from the market, okay? You don't need very much money to do that, let's be honest. If it's technology, you must show that maybe you have gone and used existing online resources to do some testing. So for example, if you want to build a marketplace What you need to do is, there are tools online that help you. There's something called WooCommerce and WordPress. Okay? This will help you build a marketplace for a product. You just need to learn the skill. There's a lot of knowledge on YouTube. There's so much that you can learn. So you test it. Now, when you test, when you come and tell me as an investor, maybe I'm a rich uncle, and you tell me that I have been able to design one mask, it looks like this. Government of Uganda is going to be buying masks in a few months. However, I'd like us to increase capacity to produce 1,000 masks. And I only want, $100, and I will be able to make the money back through margins. You understand your business, so you understand the gap, you understand the market, you understand your solution effectively, you've been able to test, you have some sales, and you're using that to grow. So don't worry about finance, worry about traction, okay? Judith asks to expound on factor-driven businesses. By definition, factor-driven businesses, no, let me actually use a better example. Many traders start trading because they have no money. I have no money, I have no job. What do I have around me? I have bananas in my backyard. I go and get them, put them in a basket, I go to the roadside and I sell them, okay? Factor-driven entrepreneurs simply want to be able to get some food, get some money to be able to move. And in most cases, what this does is it will create maybe 1 to 3 jobs or 4 jobs, and that's it. So many of us may be forced to be factor-driven entrepreneurs, but then we need to try to focus on efficiency and innovation-driven entrepreneurship to be able to grow as a business. Great, I've answered all the questions, and that is my time. Thank you very much for being on this session. I'm happy to have shared what I know with you. Like I say, looking forward to Wednesday, and Wednesday we'll be touching some very exciting stuff. We'll be touching the business model campus. Maybe what I'll do, just a quick one here. Yes.
Yeah, we just need, sorry. Just needed to, excuse me, sorry, just hold on a bit.
Well, as Dr. Geru comes back,
okay, sorry, I was taking coffee, and then a coffee mask sort of has gone. That's the difference between taking the actual coffee and taking Nescafe. I don't like Nescafe. Okay. So basically, guys, is that I just needed, David, that we highlight that tomorrow is Tuesday. There will be a session, isn't it?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, actually, yes. Tomorrow we have a feedback session.
Yeah. So
the next training is going to be on Wednesday.
So the assignment you've been given today provides you with opportunity to think through your business, because this training is really for people who are to start their enterprises. So we are taking you like you are starting your enterprise. You might already be running an enterprise, but this is an opportunity for you to begin to think through, did you actually start from understanding what the problem is that you seek to address with your enterprise? So in the process right now is that you have to begin to take seriously the assignment that you've been given, and so that tomorrow we are able to run through the feedback session. The feedback session is very important for purposes of ensuring that we are able to get through into the realities of getting more and moving more to innovation-led businesses, rather than focusing more on factor-based enterprises, which have very minimal growth potential. Because what we want to be able to do is to nurture entrepreneurs that are able to grow and be able to create more jobs and more jobs, not just employing yourself alone and your husband in future, or your wife or your son. Yeah, we want to move beyond family-based businesses that are just employing 1 to 3 people. So it is an opportunity for you to think through your business and what the opportunity is out there. So tomorrow will be a feedback session where each of you should be prepared to share what kind of ideas they have come up with. And remember, iron sharpens iron. So do not fear to get criticism in what you have put across, because if you don't get the criticism, then you don't have opportunity to refine your areas of weaknesses. So it's like, you know, if you have a knife that never gets sharpened, then it cannot cut meat. So even when the meat is broad, you can't be able to make use of the meat. You can't chop your share. In business, you have to sharpen your idea so that you can cut the share of profits from the consumers and utilizers of your business solutions. So please take that assignment process easily. Sit down, take 1 hour, 2 hours to put together, and then tomorrow we get back to at the same time to run through the feedback session. There will be a short presentation that will be done by David again before we delve into the feedback session. Then Wednesday we will then move to the next phase of the business canvas. And then Thursday, there will be another assignment from Wednesday, and then we shall be able to issue another feedback session based on the assignment of Wednesday. Then Friday, we will be dealing with business pitching and so forth, and communication, and sort of winding up this first course content component of this training. So that's what I wanted to put across for processes. And please do continue. I think there will be, David, you've prepared sort of a feedback session for today.
Yes, so it's the task around the design thinking sprint that they should work on. So you will receive an email after this conversation in about 30 minutes. And then we'll be looking forward to tomorrow. We'll also confirm what time the session will be tomorrow, but it should be the same time as well tomorrow.
Okay, so with that, I think for today, we had promised the session will run for 2 hours. We would like to close so that we are able to, there's a question, is the feedback session going to be at the same time since it was not included in the earlier program? Yes, it will be at the same time.
Yeah, great. So as we close, this is what I've shared my screen again. This is what we're going to be approaching tomorrow. So this answers again many of the questions that have been coming up in terms of what more should you consider. How do we answer those 4 very important questions about your business? You know, who are you selling to? What are you selling? How are you selling? And how much? So I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. And yeah, happy to be doing this. So expect an email in a few minutes, and that email is the one that we're going to advise the next steps. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Okay.